Live anywhere? We're live on Facebook, but it doesn't look like we're live anywhere else. Alex, you see me. YouTube just kicked in. There we go. Okay, there we go. That's weird. I'm like 2 minutes behind. That's odd. Okay, we're good now. I feel like we're on the Geeks and Co podcast. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. My live stream says I've been going for 3 minutes, but whatever. Technical difficulties. Thank you all. Let's start this from the beginning. Welcome one and all to the show. I'm so happy you all could be here. It's Monday. It's Monday Night Nerd. It's been a good day until these technical difficulties happened, but it has been a good day. I'm so glad you can all join. Tonight, we're going to be talking about sequels. We're going to be talking about all of the greatest sequels that I think, 10 of the best sequels that outdid the originals. There are so many sequels. And we could talk about one specifically because a trailer came out that we talked about last week called The Crow, has many bad sequels. These are all movies that trailers or sequels were better than the originals, in my opinion. We're going to talk about that. But first, we got a little bit of news, as always. Have you folks watched X-Men 97? Because I feel if you haven't, you've been kind of living under a rock, because holy crap was X-Men 97 such a good show. I'm a giant fan of the X-Men 90s series, the original run. It was one of the first series that I had all of the seasons on DVD. I had these before I had the Batman animated series. I think it was the first not box set, but the first series that I bought all the episodes for. I still have them. I love the series. So when I heard about X-Men 97, they had an X-Men 97 comic book. And that was the first iteration of it. And it was okay. I didn't mind it. But when I heard they were doing a sequel to the original series, I got concerned. Because nostalgia's got a thing. It's got a love-hate thing where if you don't do it proper, you're in trouble. You've got a whole generation of fans that are going to hate it. You've got a whole bunch of new fans that are excited and we're told how great it is, and now they're going to hate it. X-Men 97 knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. The first 2 episodes were amazing. You could pull off the intro and it be great, but man, they pulled off a lot more. The characters were great. A lot of the same voice actors came back. A lot of the same art style was incorporated. Little bit of a modern flair to it, a little bit of a smoothness to it compared to the 90s. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly understandable. Because if you go back and watch some of those old episodes, the animation is not that great. So I'm happy to see that. Cyclops finally gets some respect. For those who don't know, I am such a X-Men Cyclops fan. I'm sorry. I love Wolverine. I love Gambit. I love all the characters, but Cyclops has always been my favorite because he is the ultimate leader. He will do absolutely anything to protect the team, and I feel like that is a great character to have. And he does an amazing job in this. Everyone hated him in the original because he was such a Boy Scout, but this one, he is a boss, to say the least. He is such a good leader. I'm so happy the way they wrote him. All the other characters are great as always. Wolverine is great. Gambit is great. Storm plays an integral role. I don't want to spoil anything for it because I saw a couple people in chat saying they're waiting for the whole series to be released. I don't know how you can wait because I just needed to see the first 2 episodes. But if you're a fan of the 90s series, this will hook you instantly. It hooked me, and I'm so happy that they're doing this, and I hope the rest of the series is great. I think even new fans are going to enjoy it. I've seen a bunch of new fans online saying, folks, the art style is just a little off. It's a little slow. And I'm like, guys, that's how the 90s was. If they totally redid the animation, it would throw the show off completely. So I have no problem with the show. I think it's a great series. I can't wait to see the rest of the episodes. Let me just run through chat because I know a bunch of you are talking. I don't want to miss anything. Um, Crystal said, I don't have time. It'll be on Disney Plus for the next 10 years. Don't worry about it. You have lots of time. Freakish said he's waiting to binge the whole thing. I get it. David did not see it. That's perfectly fine. You can check it out on Disney Plus. Fandom Frontier, Dave. Yep, I know you enjoyed it. And you know what? The best way, Dave's got the right way of doing things. The best way to enjoy it is with a bowl of Captain Crunch. Already have season 2 done. That's great. I can't wait to see what they're going to do for the next one. Why does Hollywood keep redoing things? Are they out of ideas? No, they're not out of ideas. There are tons of ideas in Hollywood. The thing is, though, is you have two options. You either have a brand new idea that nobody knows if it's going to work or not, or you have a series that you know has a giant fan base, has a fan base that wants a new iteration of it, and you could do that. You know, I remember watching a podcast with Alexander from Seinfeld, and he was talking about Broadway, and he's saying all the Broadway hits now are just movies that have redone into musicals, because they're doing the same thing. They're going, why do we want to take all of our time, effort, and money and put it into a project we don't know if it's going to work or not? But if we do Beetlejuice and Back to the Future, you know the fans of the movies are going to go see the play. So it's basic logistics at this point, where the budgets are becoming so big that no studio wants to take a chance on a new franchise, because the amount of money you have to put into it is just way too big to take a gamble on hoping you get even half of that back. So that's just the way it is. There's been fans wanting this series for decades, and I think now that we have it, they've waited long enough that the technology's there. They've got the cast back and everything. Good for them. I heard there's going to be a cameo of another 90s character a little further down, and I'm excited to see what that is. Alex said in chat, I want them to do a reboot of The Last Starfighter. Such a great movie, but crappy. You know what? I would not be surprised if there's a Last Starfighter coming up. I would not be surprised, because that has got such a cult following that I could see that coming up in the pipeline sooner or later. Let's talk about a movie I saw last night with Mr. Phantom Frontier in chat. I saw Late Night with the Devil last night, and I have to admit, I've not seen many horror movies in theaters. I am a horror fan. I've probably watched a lot less of the newer ones. I'm a big 80s, 90s horror fan. I've seen all the Screams, all Friday the 13th, Halloween's, Nightmare on Elm Street's, all those. But there's a lot of modern horror that I just don't get into. There's a lot of the gore horror stuff that I'm not a big fan of. You know, the Hostels and stuff like that, where it's too much for me. But this was an interesting concept. So for those who don't know, the story of Late Night with the Devil was, you're in the 70s, and there's a late night talk show host played by David Dastmalchian, and he wants to become bigger. He's facing up against Johnny Carson, and he wants to beat Johnny Carson, who was the host of the late night show, who actually was back in the 70s and the 80s, and he wants to become the new late night host, but he's just not doing good enough. And the way he wants to do it is he wants to have a Halloween show on Halloween night and have someone come on the show, a girl who has been supposedly possessed by the devil. And the story of this movie is the episode was shot live. It was broadcast live. Something happens on the show, and no one has seen this footage since it first aired. And the whole movie is kind of a found footage through the eyes of the camera, but also behind the scenes cameras kind of documenting it. It was a great movie. It was such a great horror film that didn't need the blood and guts of a lot of modern horror that I've seen now. Also, so many jump scares in today's horror. It just doesn't do it for me. This was a great old-fashioned horror movie that really sucks you in with the story. It is a slow burn from the beginning. I want to stress that. It is not a guns blazing right off the bat, you're thrown into the deep end. It is a slow burn, but it pulls you in with the characters, with the story, with the intrigue. Throughout the first bit, you find out more about the host, what his backstory is, the girl, etc. If you're a horror fan, check this movie out. It is only playing at limited theaters. I'm in the Hamilton area. We had to drive to Oakville. The Winston Churchill Cineplex was the only one in the area showing it. But man, was it worth the watch. It's only about an hour and a half, and it does not overstay its welcome, which I think a lot of movies are doing now. I think a lot of movies are trying to get that, try and keep you invested for 2.5, 3 hours like a Dune. I don't know how you guys do it with that movie, but whatever. But it is just, I can't say enough. It was such a worthwhile going to see. Yeah, fair warning. Dave made a good point. There is a joke in Family Guy that Peter makes when he goes to the cinema and you see studio after studio after studio after studio before the movie starts, and you keep thinking the movie's going to start. That's this movie. There are 9 studios attached with this movie. So it is a long opening before that movie starts. We kind of got a kick out of it. We're both kind of sitting there going 7, 8, 9. Like, are we going to do full 10? But yeah, please, if you're a horror fan, go see this. There are an occasional jump scare, but it is not, a giant slasher film with, blood and guts going everywhere. There is a little bit. I'm not saying there isn't a lot or there isn't any, but go see it if you're a horror fan. Can't recommend it enough. Last bit of news, folks. A couple weeks ago, I told you that I went to see a great show in Toronto, and that was Empire Strips Back, the Star Wars burlesque parody. And I've now seen it twice, and it was a great show. If you missed it, folks, you're in luck. They're coming back to the area. They're coming to Hamilton for a limited time run. If you're a Star Wars fan, please go get tickets. Please go see this. It is a fun time. It is not, it's not hardcore nudity or anything like that. So if you're, in a relationship where that type of thing, going to a strip club and stuff like that's an issue. It's not that. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of humor. It's a lot of making fun of itself. Go get tickets for this. It's a great small production. They're doing it at the Music Lab, I believe it's called. It's the church right next to McNabb in Hamilton downtown across from Jackson Square. Go watch it. We might end up going a third time because it was such a fun time, and I'm so glad they're doing a third run here. I think this is the third time they've been here. But yeah, go check them out. You can find them online. Just Google Empire Strips Back. Great performance. That is all for the news right now. I don't think there's been any trailers or anything that I want to talk about. It's kind of been a slow week when it comes to entertainment. I've just been wanting to do everything with X-Men 97. I'm working. If you caught me on Instagram on Saturday, I was live on Instagram that night working on the shin pads for Gambit. I'm working on the back and front of my Gambit cosplay. I'm updating that because I might bring it out for Fan Expo this year. I've got a Cyclops visor I 3D printed out in the workshop drying. So it's a whole bunch of X-Men right now. I can't go full X-Men though because I have so many other cosplays to work on. I have to get ready for Expo. I was trying to get stuff done for Anime North this year. I don't think it's going to get done just because I'm getting within a couple weeks of me going on vacation, and then it's going to be a run right into Anime North, and I'm just not going to have enough time. Speaking of sequels, Beetlejuice 2, you know what? Good point, Dave. Beetlejuice 2 trailer. I heard it came out. I haven't seen jack about it since it came out. Someone mentioned that it was out. They didn't link to it or anything, so I haven't seen it. I haven't heard anything about it besides that it's out. I saw one still shot of Michael Keaton dressed up in the costume, but I've not seen anything else about it. So next week, I'll make sure to watch the Beetlejuice 2 trailer. To be completely honest, I haven't seen Beetlejuice in years, so it might be something I have to rewatch. What else we got here? Freakish Workshop. Tell me, sorry, you moved. Tell me you're where, and we'll do magic the same day. You know what? That sounds great. I know it'll be one of the 3 days. It'll just depend on what else. I know my plan right now, and this will probably change. My plan for Expo is I want to do Gambit. I want to do I want to try and do Judge Dredd in time. I got some 3D printing to do, but I want to possibly do Judge Dredd again, and I want to do the secret costume, which is started there. It's a big black bat guy with ears, so we'll see if I get that done too. But yeah, that's all the news for the day. Let's jump into the sponsor, and then we'll jump into the main event, folks. The sponsor, as always, is my beautiful, lovely wife. I say it every week, but it is so true. I would not be the person I am without her. I would not be doing this. I would not have the life I have now if I did not meet her, and she make me a better person. And yeah, hun, I love you. You'll always be my sponsor. Cheers. All right, folks, it is time for the main event. Let's talk about sequels, folks. Movie sequels are a dime a dozen. There are hundreds, if not thousands of sequels. We just talked about it earlier that a franchise or a studio will obviously want to do a sequel or something to follow up an amazing movie, because if they try and make another brand new one, it might fall flat on its face. So sequels are all over the place, and there are some bad ones. But occasionally, especially in the nerd realm, there are some that are better than the originals, in my opinion. And we're going to talk about those tonight. Now, I want to do a little bit of clarification. I want to do a little bit of understanding of what my list is. First off, these are all sequels that can stand on their own without the previous movie. That is number one. I feel that each one of these can just be its own movie. You don't have to care about the first one. It would be good too, but I feel like these are good enough to stand on their own. They don't need the originals. Second, these are all direct sequels. These are not threequels. These are not squeequels. There is nothing like that. I did post on Instagram that I wanted people to send in what they thought their favorite sequels were, and I have those. I said no squeakles. I have those. I have that list here. I did not preface that it had to be a direct sequel, so there are some that people sent in that are threequels, fivequels, etc. So we'll talk about those at the end, and I will include those in that list. But for my list, it has to be a direct sequel. The problem is if we do anything else, like an Alvin and the Chipmunks, the Squeakquel, or anything like that, then we have to include Fury Road, Logan, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all those ones. It's just way, yeah. By the way, Freakish Workshop submitted like 15, so get ready for that. JS, that is being added to the list. That is being added to the list. And you know what, Alex? I'm going to throw yours in too. Just give me 1 second, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. Perfect. All right. Last minute additions. All right. Where were we? I'm just checking through my notes. There are some that are not going to be on this list. And that is because I haven't seen them, or I haven't seen them in so long that I just don't have the time. JS, thank you for saying that, because that is one on this list, and that is The Wrath of Khan is an example. I know The Wrath of Khan is a great movie. I saw it so many years ago, but I just don't have enough knowledge of the movie to explain why it's better than the original, except that Star Trek #1 is a boring as hell movie that all they did was just show off that they built a bloody big version of the Enterprise. Because, folks, if you're a Star Trek fan, that's all that first movie is there's a 20-minute sequence of them staring at the Enterprise, because it's the first time they had a full-size model that wasn't about this big. So it's kind of a slow movie. But yes, Ricardo acted. Yes, Ricardo did act out everyone. Yeah, Wrath of Khan is one that I would have included, but it's just not on my list because I have not seen it. Star Trek #1 was great if you're on drugs. Yes, I can totally understand that. Also, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, How to Train Your Dragon. I'm not a Potter fan. I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not a How to Train Your Dragon fan. So those three, and there's other ones that just they're not on the list because I'm not a fan of them. So again, I couldn't tell you which one's better and which one's not. These will be more nerd themed, obviously, because that's what this show's kind of about. Godfather 2, I'm well aware that's probably, I feel it's a better movie than the original. From Russia with Love is better than Dr. No. 22 Jump Street is probably better than 21 Jump Street. So these are all movies that I do believe are good, but they're not nerdy enough to be on this list. Let's kick things off. These are in no particular order, by the way. This is not a 10-1. This is not a 1-10. This is just, I picked these 10 because I think they're better. Let's start. Is another one out? Yep. All right. So let's go here. Number 1, again, no particular order. Spider-Man 2. Let's be honest. We all loved the first Spider-Man. It was I know we had movies before that. We had X-Men, but this, I feel, was the first time that a generation went, holy crap, that's a Marvel movie on the big screen. In my opinion, this is a better movie for a few reasons. First off, I feel Dr. Octopus is a better Spider-Man villain than Green Goblin. Both of them have a lot of history with the character. They are almost a 1 and 1.5 when it comes to what are Spider-Man's biggest villains in their history. But I feel like Spider-Man 2 did better because I feel like Doc Ock had that humanity to him. I feel that Doc Ock was a better villain because I felt it's hard to explain without kind of going through step by step of the movie. Green Goblin in the first one's just really psychotic. He's as soon as he gets that venom or that toxin into him, he is simply psychotic. You could tell, even though Doc Ock does have the gadget in the back of his head, he does still have that little bit of that humanity in him. And even though he can't, is it because he's a sympathetic villain? Yeah, it is because he's a sympathetic villain. You do feel bad for him because he's trying to do something to make the world better. But in the end, it kind of blows up in his face, which is kind of what most scientists have happen to them in comics. I feel like the pacing is better in number 2. Now, I feel like it does have a little bit of an unfair advantage because in the first movie, you really had to do an origin story. You had to take the first half of the movie and explain who Peter Parker was, who Mary Jane was, who Aunt May was, who Green Goblin was, and all that backstory. However, I feel like Raimi kind of had the groove by the second one. I feel like it moves a little better. There's a little more intrigue. Alex said perfect in chat. Doc Ock, like Thanos, you could relate and understand his motives. I feel like Raimi understands the characters a little better. I feel like due to the reception of number 1 and what the critiques of it were, he was really able to bring those characters together and have a more conclusive story that you could honestly just, like I said, put this on its own without the third one, without the first one, and it would be one of the best comic book movies ever made until an animated one came out later. And let's not forget, there is a Thomas Jane cameo at the end. If you're a fan of the Punisher, he does make an appearance in the background as Mary Jane's running in a wedding dress. But overall, I love this movie. This is probably the one Spider-Man movie I've seen more than any other. There's going to be flaws with all these Spider-Man movies. You know, Raimi has a way of directing, but I still feel it's best of the 3, and it can stand on its own next to its original. Let's go into number 2, folks. If this isn't on your list, you're not a nerd. Empire Strikes Back. I mean, obviously this was going to be on the list for obvious reasons. Let's start with number 1, the Hoth battle. That Hoth battle, I could play. You could say you're doing a Star Wars game. There's been hundreds, and I don't care. I like Star Wars, but I'm not a big fan. If you tell me there is a Hoth flying in a snow speeder level, I'm intrigued. you've got my attention, because that is one of the coolest battles I've ever seen in film. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the snow. I don't know if it's the size of the ATSTs and the ATATs, the look of them, whatever it is. I love that Hoth battle at the beginning. Han and Leia's relationship, as you can tell on the poster, it blossoms in this one, and we get away from the brother-sister problem that everybody makes fun of even today. It's a yes, there is a Hoth battle on the N64. I'm aware. There's one in sorry, had a mind fart there. There is one in Shadows of the Empire where you play in that game as Dash Rendar, one of the best characters in the Star Wars universe. The Leia-Han relationship blossoms. You've got the amazing lines of "I love you, I know." Great relationship building with them, which will pay off in the third movie. I would say, and I know I might get a little bit of hate from this because I love other ones too, but this is the best lightsaber fight they've ever. I feel like when you introduced a character like Darth Maul in episode 1, and he was able to do the big flips and the double-sided lightsaber and the twisting and all the cool moves, I enjoy it, but for a different reason. This really feels like two samurais going after each other. Very slow, very deliberate, very defensive, not just swinging your lightsaber around doing all these cool attacks, which look amazing on screen, but really don't have the impact that this fight does. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It is the best lightsaber fight, in my opinion. Yoda's introduction in this movie. You have a character that will last. I believe you just had a baby version of this character. If you didn't have Yoda, you wouldn't have baby Yoda, Grogu now. So there's another reason why this movie's even better. And folks, the plot twist at the end, that, spoilers, if you don't know it by now, Vader's Luke's father. Sorry. But that plot twist just blew everyone's mind at the time. Now, again, there is a little bit of, not understanding the backstory and stuff if you didn't see the first one. But I still think you could do this movie on its own if you're a new Star Wars fan, you can do this on your own without having to care about the first movie. You're missing out if you don't see the first one. But I think this one is good enough to stand on its own. Let's see. Andrew Saxton in chat said, speaking of Raimi, Evil Dead. Well, you read my mind, sir. Evil Dead 2. Now, is this nerdy? I think so. I think Evil Dead and Army of Darkness are very nerdy, especially because the first time I went to Fan Expo, the whole reason I was going was to meet Bruce Campbell. So it counts in my book. This movie is so fun. So fun. The original Evil Dead is a good movie. It is a great independent film. However, it has its problems. And I feel like when Evil Dead 2 came out, they were able to see the problems, correct them, and add to them. And if you don't know what I mean by that, if you see Evil Dead 2, you've seen Evil Dead 1. Because Evil Dead 2 pretty much is a retelling of 1 up until Bruce gets thrown into a tree, and then it continues. So you've seen number 2, you've seen number 1, basically. It's way more fun. It's way more fun. The jokes and the humor land so much better. They land so much funnier. If you've ever seen Evil Dead the musical, you will see more references from Evil Dead 2 than Evil Dead 1. The characters and the house laughing at Bruce, the amazing blood effects of him shooting the wall and the wall just gushing stupid amounts of blood and changing colors as it's bleeding. That is so much good humor. I mean, it's in the first one, but it's still great. The camera acting as the spirit chasing Bruce. Invention of shaky cam, 100%. Obviously the budget helps in this type of movie. I feel because Bruce Campbell had done this role now twice, he was able to get more of his character into it. You know, the sawing of the hand and him fighting his hand. There's a lot more personality in the Ash Williams character in the second one than the first one. In the first one, he's very standard, very boy next door, trying to be a hero. He gets a lot funnier in the second one. He gets more of that Ash humor and that Ash machismo that everyone loves. The groovy comes in at that point. And I, again, going back to Star Wars, that cliffhanger ending, if you watch Evil Dead 2 and he gets sucked into that portal and falls into medieval times and you don't want to see what the next movie is, I don't know what's wrong with you, buddy, because as soon as I saw it for the first time, I was like, where does this go? And it was even funnier for me because I didn't know that Army of Darkness was a sequel or a threequel, I guess you'd call it. I watched Evil Dead 2, then Evil Dead 1. And I thought Army of Darkness was a completely different movie because there's no Evil Dead mentioned in it. So I had no idea. But as soon as I found out it was a continuation, I watched it, and it's just as funny. But again, it's a threequel. It does not count. So Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn is the sequel that I'm choosing. Now, you're probably sitting there going, Mike, you're a big Marvel fan. You're a big comic book fan. You had Star Wars on there, or you had Spider-Man on there, but you've got a whole bunch of MCU movies. Is there any MCU movie you're going to put in there? Well, yeah, the next one, Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I have to say, I was not a big Captain America fan when this whole MCU thing started. But when I first saw Chris Evans don the shield, I instantly became a Captain America fan. I will admit, I seem to fall into liking characters that are Boy Scouts, Cyclops, Judge Dredd, Green Lantern, like Captain America. These all kind of fit the same profile. Probably because I'm a Boy Scout and I don't like doing anything that gets me in trouble. But this movie was a definite change to what the Marvel landscape was ready for. This was an espionage movie with a Marvel paint over top of it. That's what it was. And I think, I don't want to get into the Marvel MCU now and what we all think it should be and all that, but that's what makes this movie good, is that it is a great movie and they've just put Marvel characters in it to fill the roles. This is a great espionage movie. It's a great spy movie, and it really makes Captain America the leader. Because even though he is a Boy Scout, this movie is all about he needs to stand up to S.H.I.E.L.D. because he realizes S.H.I.E.L.D. is overstepping its bounds. You find out why, because Hydra has infiltrated it. But this really made me go, out of everybody, Iron Man's great, but he's too unpredictable. Cap will, like Cyclops, will always do what's best for the team. Crystal in chat says, I went to see Winter Soldier and hadn't seen the first one, and my best friend looks at me in disbelief and says, who's the guy with the arm? And she says, did you not see the first one? Yeah, and you know what? It kind of worked. You could still watch this without seeing the first one. Yes, the Bucky part kind of doesn't make sense, but once you realize it's his friend, and they give enough flashbacks in the movie that you can still follow along fine. The introduction of Bucky is another great part in this. I feel the first one, I mean, I don't know. I like the first one. I think Red Skull's a great villain. It's his ultimate villain in some cases, but it's I feel the connection that Cap and Bucky have and showing that dynamic is something that makes a much better story. I feel it's the same issue slash dynamic that Batman and Two-Face have, where Bruce and Harvey are best friends, and now because of something that happened, they are at war, and you know Bruce as Batman doesn't want to kill Two-Face because he knows Harvey's in there. And it's the same with this. Cap knows Bucky is in there, even though the Winter Soldier is tearing through people. Let's see. Freakish Workshop says, it was the first MCU film where the trailer alone gave me chills when you saw Winter Soldier for the first time. Yeah, 100%. You knew, even if you didn't know the background of the character or read the books, you saw that character and you know it meant business and things were going to happen. And they do. Let's go. Yeah, great spy movie. The best scene in this movie, folks, the elevator scene with Cap. Such an iconic moment where he beats the living daylights out of, I think, 9 guys in an elevator and gets that magnet on his arm and kicks the shield up. I'm sorry. As a guy, I splooshed at that moment. That was, okay, you're my hero now. You are my hero. And to parody it and joke about it in Endgame made it even better, where he just knew, oh, well, I have to say is Hail Hydra and I'm going to get away with it. He does it and he's good. Anyone want to get off? Exactly. Such a good movie, such a great version of the character. Let's jump out of the MCU and let's jump into a sci-fi classic, folks. Again, if this one is not on your list, what are you doing? Schwarzenegger at the top, Terminator 2 Judgment Day at the bottom. Do I need to say anything else? T1 is good. Terminator 1 is very, very good. It is a great 80s action movie. Terminator 2 is a 90s blockbuster, though. The things that are done in this movie, practical, CGI, it is still an incredible movie decades later. Let's kind of go through it. The special effects still hold up so well. The T-1000 going through the bars is still a great scene. It still looks amazing. The chrome just pops still. The practical effects that they did with the chopper going under the bridge, the driving sequences, the gun sequences, the CG of Arnold cutting his arm off, like, it's so good. This is, if you're going into the special effects business and you do not go, this is the James Cameron movie you should be watching, you don't know what you're talking about. This is James Cameron to a T. T2 to be exact. The story flip works perfectly. Even if you don't know the first one, you see the fear in John and Sarah Connor when they run into him. You get it right off the bat of there's something that happened. And these guys are terrified. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know every little bit of backstory. The growth of Sarah Connor from the first movie to this movie, she is 100 times the woman she was when they ended the first movie. She is a woman to be reckoned with in this movie. She runs through people. She runs through all the orderlies at the psych ward. She almost kills Miles Dyson and probably would have killed his family as well before she realizes the error of her ways. And even at the end, she still feels like there's hope for humanity, and that is a great character. Even if I watch it and my wife doesn't like her, which I don't understand. I thought she was going to love it. She didn't like it at all. And can we say anything else besides how amazing Robert Patrick's Robert Patrick is incredible. This is the movie that made him, and I love him in Peacemaker. I love him in Reacher, but I'm sorry, he will always be the T-1000. The coldness he uses is just perfect. The lifelessness, the terror behind him having no emotion at all is perfect for this movie. Folks, if you've not seen this movie, I would love for you to keep watching, but if you've not seen this, turn this off. Go watch the movie because you're missing out. This is not as good as that. It will never be. Folks, T2 has to be on this list. Let's do a little switch here, folks. We've gone sci-fi, we've gone Marvel, we've gone horror. Let's go kids. Let's go kids. Because, folks, if you grew up with Toy Story like I did, this is a better movie. And Toy Story is almost perfect. But this has a little bit more, and that is emotion. Toy Story 1 had emotion, folks. We all remember Buzz realizing he's not really a space ranger. But every main character in Toy Story 2 has an arc that will almost bring you to tears. The emotional roller coaster is the heart of this movie, and there is so many funny movies in this. There's so many funny moments in this movie. All the toys walking across in the pylons is a great moment. The walking into the toy store and seeing all the different types of toys is a great moment in this movie. But Woody's understanding of who he is and what he was is an emotional roller coaster. Buzz finally meeting his arch enemy is an emotional roller coaster. Jessie's scene where she talks about her past. If you're not crying at the end of that scene, holy crap. Kids of the younger generation, and before I did, they have the Fox and the Hound scene. And I don't need to say anything else but the Fox and the Hound scene. And everyone knows what I'm talking about. I feel like we had Jessie's moment. That scene with Jessie is heartbreaking. To the point where I bet there's a generation of kids who would never want to get rid of their toys because of that moment. The new toys fit so well in this world. This is a great cast of characters that I don't think needed additions, but they do. And they do it well. Having the second Buzz, having Zurg, having Barbie, having Ken, having all these amazing, amazing characters added to an amazing ensemble just makes it even better. And last but not least, Andy's evolution. Like Andy's evolution of being that kid who just wanted these toys to seeing that arc of him growing up and realizing that what is to come, because you know something like Pixar and Disney is not going to do that emotional climb and not know what's going to happen next. You know, sooner or later he's going to hit an age where those toys aren't going to matter as much. And we get that in 3, but I feel like all of that is built on this movie, because back when Toy Story 1 came out, they didn't really have an idea of what was going to happen. This was their first shot, and they just did a great movie. But this is where they really started to thread that story of where everyone might lead in the future. So, and everyone in chat is talking about moments that are making them cry in Disney movies. I didn't want to talk about all those, but the Jessie moment in this one is one of them. And you're just emotionally scarred if you had both. Yes, if you saw Fox and the Hound and Toy Story 2, you are very scarred. I will give you a hug next time I see you. You deserve it. So we go into this one. We're at number 6. We're about to go into number 7. This is going to be a short one, but I feel like I would get crucified if I did not put this on the list. It's not my favorite, Everyone knows it. If you've seen the episode, you know this isn't my favorite movie, but I can't say that it's not a bad sequel. It's a good sequel. I like Batman Begins better, but again, if I don't, I'm going to get crucified. The Dark Knight is The Dark Knight. I know everyone loves it. There's way more action. Their ledger's great. Blah, blah, blah. We know. We all know. Everyone love it. Great. Okay. Can we move on? That was number 7. I don't need to say anything else. Number 8. Let's continue with comics, because you guys can have your Dark Knight and all that. My sequel, X2. X2 is what every Wolverine fan wanted. In X-Men 1, Wolverine was Wolverine, but he wasn't Wolverine. In this one, when all those agents attack the mansion, we finally get Wolverine unleashed, ripping people to shreds. Didn't see any blood, didn't see any limbs, but he rips them apart. It is, and Alex made a good point in chat, based on one of the best graphic novels of all of X-Men. This was the first time, well, yeah, I would say, because, well, this was the first team movie, but it's still important. This is one of the only times, even now, that you have a mutant jump sides. I think I can't think of another story where somebody really jumped sides. And I wouldn't count Jean Grey, because Jean was, the Phoenix and Jean, I count as 2 different people. But you had Pyro in this movie, who started out as a mutant at the Mutant Academy, and by the end, he's with Magneto, and will soon be making an appearance in Deadpool Wolverine. But yeah, I don't think anyone else has jumped sides in a comic book movie. If someone's going to correct me, probably, but I can't think of anything for me. So that's a big one, in my opinion, that back then they did this for the first time and they haven't done it since. Alan Cummings as Nightcrawler steals this movie, in my opinion. I love everybody on that poster, but you're missing Alan Cummings as Nightcrawler, and he's the star. That opening scene where he's what's his I don't want to say poofing, because that's not the wrong one, but him teleporting from area to area in the White House and going after the president is a great scene. And I think Alan Cummings really brings a humanity to that character that I feel like you could easily skip. You could easily just go into, he's a big blue guy who teleports and is good with knives and circus and yes, bamfing. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. It's on the friggin' Kevin Smith podcast. I think I remember that. Yeah, it's definitely something that they have failed, in my opinion, later, because they do bring him back in the First Class era, I guess you'd call it, in the second one. But it's just not the same. Alan Cummings is such a good actor that he brings a humanity to that character and an understanding to that character that I think can, like I said, easily be missed. You're starting to see Wolverine's origin. You got a little teaser at the beginning, but I feel like we didn't talk about anything of it. It's kind of hard to understand. But really going to Alkaline Lake and seeing what he became, and sadly, they used that trope many more times in the future, but I feel like this was the first one that really made people who didn't know who Wolverine was and what his backstory was, it made them intrigued. And that was all based on the little bits they gave here and there. The only problem I have with this movie is Jean's sacrifice at the end. And I think it's a dumb choice. I feel like it could have done so much better. Jean could have easily just lifted the ship out of the water, and just been avoid. But so that I know they had to set it up for the Phoenix in the third one, but blah blah blah. But that's the only flaw I have with this movie. But again, I feel like you could go into this movie and not have to see number one. But the Phoenix effect under the lake at the end was amazing. Well, again, if you've read the books or have any inclination of what Jean Grey becomes, you knew when she died something was going to happen, and it was pretty understandable. You mean the undead Phoenix? Yes. But yeah, I feel like you could skip number one and jump right into number two. There's enough backstory in this movie to save you 2 hours watching the first one. Part three. So you know what, Alex? Let's take a second here. I got 2 movies left, but let's take a quick second here. I don't hate number 3. I think number 3 is a fine movie. Is it a perfect movie? Hell no. But I think it's a fine movie. You've got the introduction of Angel, which they could have done more with, but they already had a big cast. You've got Kelsey Grammer as Beast, who does an incredible job to the point where they brought him back in the Marvels. And it's a good story. I feel like they could have written a little better, but it is the Cure has always been something that the X-Men have all one line. Yes, I'm the Juggernaut. Yeah, I know. I blame Vinnie Jones for that one. But it's the Cure story. It's the most understandable storyline from what the X-Men are. It's the they talk about it in the movie of there are some people like Storm and I'll even use Magneto that are, why do I need to be cured? But then you've got people like Beast and Rogue who their life would be completely different if they were cured. So it's a good story, in my opinion, that would make people think about, well, do I need to be cured for whatever my problem is? And let's all remember what the X-Men was loosely based off of. That's if you're anyone a minority or anyone of the LGBTQ community or anything like that, they're talking to people like that. That's basically what it's about. Let's see, Alex. I had issues with what they did with Phoenix and with Wolverine. Yeah, you can do it. I never liked the Phoenix as a character in the first place, so I knew I was going into that not liking the villain. The plot was good, but the execution was flawed, and they rushed it. Should have been done over 2 movies. Agreed. I read something somewhere. I wish I could quote it, but I can't. Where they had tried to, I think it was Bryan Singer was the director, wanted to do it as 2, but the studio wasn't sure if they could handle doing 2. They weren't sure if they were able to, if the audience would come back after a cliffhanger ending. So blame the studio for that, I guess. Again, I can't quote it, but yeah, I like 3. I think 2 is a better movie, obviously, but 3 is a good one. With any of these lists, folks, if you've ever watched my list, I try to throw in a curveball every once in a while just to keep you on your toes. And this is my curveball for the night. This is not one that I hate or that everyone hates and I love or love and hate. This is just one that I don't think many people realize is a sequel. Now you're probably sitting there going, excuse me, don't you mean that Hannibal is the actual sequel? No. Silence of the Lambs is a sequel, folks, because technically it is a sequel to the original 1986 movie Manhunter. Thank you, Alex. Yes, there's a 1986 movie called Manhunter starring William Peterson from CSI fame. And funny enough, talking about X2, Brian Cox plays Hannibal Lecter. And this one kills it way better. I have seen Manhunter. I saw it a few years ago, and it's okay, to say the least. The problem is it is very similar to Silence of the Lambs. William Peterson plays an FBI agent. They're looking for a killer. Brian Cox just plays it as Brian Cox. Like, he just plays Hannibal as Brian Cox. He doesn't play it any different. He does try to throw in a British accent a little bit, but it just doesn't really hit. Anthony Hopkins just kills it. Like, the dynamic between Peterson's character and Brian Cox, it's just odd. Like, and again, I'm looking at it from someone who I've seen this movie a bunch, so I know the dynamic that's in this. Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are incredible. That dynamic of them talking to each other is just riveting. So trying to compare it in any way just doesn't really work. So I feel like that's a little bit of a bias. But I've watched the Peterson, Anthony or Brian Cox conversations that are very similar to the Lecter Harding conversations, and it's just no comparison. Like, it's very cold. It almost feels very cue cardy. Like, they just feel like there's no emotion behind it. There doesn't feel like many stakes. The Buffalo Bill seems a lot more crazy in this one than it is in the first one. If I remember it, I don't even know if it is. I can't remember if it is Buffalo Bill in the original. I think it might be someone else. Anyway, the true villain of the movie, Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, is a much more intriguing villain. Yes, I understand. There are a lot more differences in this one. There are a lot more liberties were taken in this one than in the original. But no, this is an easy win for this one, because I don't think most people realize it's a sequel. We're at number 9, folks. We got one left. Let's quickly run through the list before we get out of here. Spider-Man 2, Empire Strikes Back, Evil Dead 2, Captain America Winter Soldier, Terminator 2, Toy Story 2, The Dark Knight, X2, Silence of the Lambs, and last but not least, it was mentioned earlier, Aliens. Can we, just like Terminator 2, can we say anything bad about this movie? Like, this movie is incredible. This made Ripley is a great character in the first one. This makes her a certified badass. Hands down. Even that poster alone makes that character a badass. And let's not even get into the supporting cast. You've got Sigourney Weaver, which is great. And in the first one, you've got a good cast. But folks, in number 2, you've got Michael Biehn, you've got Paxton, you've got Hendrickson, you've got Reiser, you've got Goldstein, you've got Henn. This is a knockout supporting cast that is... What? Crystal in chat just said you've never seen it? Man, what are you? Turn this off. Go watch it. This is a great sci-fi movie. A great sci-fi horror movie. You know what? I'm going to say horror. It's just a great sci-fi movie. The effects, obviously, because of the budget, got way better. Having more than one alien just makes it even more terrifying. If you've seen the original, you know how terrifying the xenomorph is. But once you find out that there's a bunch in this next one, whoo, you just go, how are they going to make it? And it just raises the stakes so much. If you didn't know the first one, you still are just in. These characters they're bloodthirsty, and they are a swarm. Watch party? Agreed. I would totally sit down and watch this again. The final scene with the loader, like, it has been parodied left, right, and center, and that is because it is such an iconic scene. The "get off her, you bitch" is a great line from a great character. Just like the xenomorphs, this movie just keeps coming at you. The original Alien is a great movie, but just like I talked about it Late Night with the Devil, it's a slow burn, but it's a great movie. This one is just down your throat, continuous, good, scary, alien fun. And as great as the character was in the first movie, the xenomorph became a pulp pat 3, 2, 1. The xenomorph became a pop culture icon because of this movie. Hands down. It's the same reason why Jason became a pop. It's going to be one of those nights. A pop culture icon, not in number 1 and number 2, but once he got the hockey mask in number 3. So, yeah, yeah, go watch it. Again, all of these movies, if you haven't seen them, go watch it. Folks, that is my list. Before we get out of here, let's run through everyone else's list that they sent me. Again, this is going to be not just sequels because I did not clarify in the original post that that this was going to be just sequels. So there are going to be some threequels and etc. On Instagram, Trixie said Dune 2 is one of her favorites. I have not seen Dune 1. Well, I've seen the original, but I've not seen the latest Dune, and I've not seen Dune 2, so that's not on my list. I know I have to watch them, but I don't have 6 hours and X amount of change to sit down and watch them. But one day I will. Tech Goggles said Fast 5. I'm trying to think. Is that Paul Walker's last one? If it is, I'll give her that one. I'm a Rock fan, so I go with, I think it's 7 that The Rock's introduced in. Let's see. Regman Cosplay said Spider-Man 2. I agree. Canadian Angel Cosplay said Aladdin King of Thieves. When it comes to Aladdin sequels, I'll give her King of Thieves. I'll give her King of Thieves. That's not a bad one. You're coming over next weekend and we're watching Dune Part 1. I don't know if I need a nap that bad. I'll watch it sooner or later. Ill-Gotten Cosplay said Evil Dead 2. Agreed. That Empire sent one, and I don't know if this counts as a sequel, but sure, we'll do it for this one. The Scott Pilgrim animated series that's on Netflix compared to the original movie. I don't know if I'll count it because it's not really a sequel. If I remember correctly, I believe it's more of a retelling. But sure, if you count that as a sequel in your book, I'll go with it. Crystal said Batman Returns. I'll give you that one. I will give you Batman Returns. I will agree. I love Keaton in the first one. I feel he gets a lot more to do in the second one. Probably because there's more villains and more stuff to do. Let's see. JS earlier in chat said Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I will give up my nerd card for a minute and admit that I've not seen any of the Bill and Ted's. I've not seen the original. I've not seen Bogus Journey. I've not seen Excellent Adventure. I've not seen Bogus Journey, and I've not seen the new one, whatever the new one was, last year, a couple years ago. I know those are ones I should see. I don't know. The two buddy comedies of mine are like, I'm a Wayne's World fan and I'm a Jay and Silent Bob fan. So those are kind of the two that I know I'll compare it to, but I know I'll watch him sooner or later because it's Keanu. I mean, how can you not? And Alex said Last Crusade, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I've not seen any of the Indiana Jones. I know. There goes my nerd card again. Yeah, I've not seen any of the Indiana Jones. I know I have to. I know. I'm sorry, Alex. Actually, I put on the first one a while back. I want to say it was about a year ago. And I just could not get into it. It was a slow movie for me. I know. It's weird. I'm getting to that generation or that, I guess, that age where I'm starting to see the age of movies, and there's a lot of old ones that I'm like, I need to watch these, but boy, are they slow. I know, but I should watch them. I really should. I should watch those, and I know I should watch the Bill and Ted's. Now let's go through Freakish Workshop's list, because man, when I say send me one, he sends me about 15. Okay. The Wolverine. Sure. Sure. If we're going off of the Wolverine franchise, just the one and two, the Wolverine and the Wolverine, or Wolverine Origins, I should say, and the Wolverine. Yeah, I'll give you that one. Spirit of Vengeance, you're drunk. You're drunk, dude. There's no way you could tell me Spirit of Vengeance is better than the first Ghost Rider. There's nothing. There's a great bunch of scenes, and he looks better. The Ghost Rider's designed a lot better in that second movie, but no, you cannot tell me Spirit of Vengeance is better than the original. Winter Soldier, we have that on the list. Ultron, no, not in my book. I know people would disagree, but I love the original Avengers. That is one of my favorite movies ever, because that was the first movie where I was like, this is the moment that I've been waiting for as a child. So Avengers will always be number one. Freakish Workshop, you better be talking about Winter Soldier. You better not be saying better acting, better story in Spirit of Vengeance, because you are drunk. Ultron we did. Narnia, Prince of Caspian. Never seen the Narnia movies. Fantasy. I'm not a fantasy person. I don't watch any of the fantasy stuff. It's just not for me. Alien Covenant. You're also drunk. I'm sorry. Alien stopped at Resurrection in my book. Those new ones are just hard for me to watch. If you like it, great. I'm glad. It's not for me. Sicario, Day of Solado. No idea what that is. Absolutely no idea what that is. G.I. Joe Retaliation. Another set of movies that I need to watch. I need to watch those because I hear they're good. And I hear they're going to be crossing over with Transformers. Days of Future Past. I don't know about that one. I like First Class a lot. I think that was a great reimagining of the series. I know it completely messes up timelines and stuff when they start getting deeper into them. Yeah, I'll give you Days of Future Past. I'll give you that one. Star Trek Into Darkness. I need to watch that. That is actually something I'll be watching shortly. I just saw the new Star Trek for the first time a couple weeks ago. So yeah, I will need to watch that. Resident Evil Apocalypse, I will give you that one. That is a good choice. The first one is good just because it's got a little nostalgia in my heart, but yeah, the Res 2 Apocalypse is even better. Having Nemesis in the movie is pretty darn cool. Friday the 13th Part 2. Friday the 13th Part 2 is better than Part 1. Yeah, I could give you that one. I could give you Friday the 13th Part 2. Part 1 is great, mostly because of the twist of who the killer is. But yeah, I could see number 2 being better. All right. We're over an hour, 10 minutes, folks. Time for me to hit the old dusty trail, and time for you to get some sleep. Next week, I'm trying to think what I'm going to do. I got a couple ideas for next week. I think we're just going to have to wait. I'll post something in the next couple days for what we'll do next Monday. The week after that will be the day after WrestleMania. We will do WrestleMania moments. We'll do top 10 WrestleMania moments on that show. But folks, it has been a great night. Thank you for stopping by. Please, if you're still here, hit the like on the video, whether you're on Twitch, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube. Hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, it means a lot to me. I love that you guys leave a whole bunch of comments. Also, If you can comment on the video itself, like after it's posted, that'd be great too. Any engagement is great. Thank you, everybody, for your feedback. I will see you all next week. Have a great week. Have a great, relaxing week. Have a short week. You guys, we get Friday off. Oh, it's going to be nice to have a Friday off. I got a lot of stuff to do. I will talk to you all soon. Love you all. I will see you next week on Monday Night Nerd. Stay nerdy, folks. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.